Yeah, let's kind of get into it a little bit here, Chris. In the last episode, we went back and started breaking down some film, and one of the things I think we really saw was, you know, we were talking about Colorado a little bit when we were kind of going through Nebraska's schedule, and we kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there. And I know you thought probably the same way as I did. Let's look at breaking them down. So kind of with that, let's kind of let you jump out and take the lead here. And what do you think Deion Sanders has got going on at Colorado this year?
Okay. I'm going to say it. I know on the last podcast, I probably sounded like a dick rider for Colorado and Deion, but I just, like I said, I truly feel this guy's got a buzz about him. Here's the thing I didn't throw in there. Colorado went 1-11 last year. I believe, right, Christian? I think they were 1-11, something like that.
Yeah, right? If I'm not mistaken, it was 1-11.
Okay. There's only one way to go. I mean, truly, let's be honest. So they're going to be better. You know my thoughts on the Pac-12. I think they're soft. I think they've been soft for a long time as far as there's a few teams you could scatter in there the last, 20 years that I thought were really good teams, the USC teams. A couple of those Oregon teams weren't bad, but they got their asses kicked in a bowl game. But I think he's going to create enough buzz. He's got, a top 30 recruiting class this year. I know his son's at quarterback, as I said. I see them, if you want to give me just a record off the rip from what I've looked at so far, and I think you're going to pull it, or you get the transfer portal and all that up there. But I think they can go 7-5, 6-6. And I mean, that's not a stretch, but from 1-11 to 6-6, 7-5, that's a crazy good record. I did predict them to beat Nebraska, by the way. The only reason why, as I said last week, was because it's early in the year. I think Colorado plays TCU off the rip this year. I think that'll be a really highly watched game just because of, Deion being at Colorado, TCU coming off that ass whooping that Georgia threw on them. As you say, their second string, maybe. So I think there's going to be a lot of buzz around Colorado this year. I do think that they definitely have improved, which is not a stretch by any imagination. So with the kids they're bringing in, I think they got a top corner in that class. I believe they obviously got the Sanders as quarterback, or his son's quarterback. And they also got like a couple other guys that came with him from Jackson State. So like they're going to be, I think they'll be okay. But like you mentioned, and you kind of slowed my roll in that podcast about Colorado, they still got a lot of other kids off that 1-11 team. I mean, they couldn't run the ball last year. God, they were miserable last year. So I like I said, 6-6, 7-5 is where I'm kind of at. I'll let you have at it here.
Yeah, I think, it got me thinking, and I realized, hey, look, I don't care. I will sit here and I will just tell you when I, have probably been a little wrong about some stuff. I'll be the first one to tell you. I might have been a little bit off on Colorado and what the expectations are. I mean, they've got a really good team, and they do have, I looked at it. They got some 3 stars, they got a lot of 3 stars in that transfer portal. Some guys that kind of had played at other places. And, we're kind of, backups are played a little bit, elsewhere, smaller divisions and stuff like that. I mean, right now, just looking at who all they've got out of the transfer portal, they pulled Travis Hunter, who was the number 1 player, I think last year. He was a cornerback out there. They've got, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this kid's name, no disrespect, but he was a 4-star tight end who played at Arkansas State, it looks like. Then you get Shedeur Sanders, who you've talked about. You're pretty high on him. He's, pretty elite quarterback, if you want to say so. I think he's pretty electric. And then, Jimmy Horn, and, who played over at UCF. I mean, again, he's a pretty good wide receiver. And then lastly, Mr. Kennedy here, again, I'm not going to try to pronounce his first name, played at Alabama as a linebacker there. So they've got some pieces. I was looking at, they signed the 30th recruiting class, which is actually pretty surprising to me. They out-recruited some pretty damn good schools there.
They did, and that's where, not to interrupt you, but they've done a good job. I believe Nebraska's at 23rd or somewhere in that realm right now, depending on what website you go to. But yeah, man, I truly do think Colorado is going to be, I don't want to say like legit on a national landscape, but they're going to create a lot of buzz, man. Deion has been all over ESPN. He's been on multiple, shows and stuff talking, man. They're going to create a lot of buzz. And with that TCU first game is kind of cool. You know what I mean? With the ass whooping they took, TCU does lose a lot of people to the draft. They lose a lot off that team, but I think that'll be probably one of it might be the biggest game week one college football. Be honest with you. I know Colorado hasn't done shit, but that'll be up there.
That's going to be, that's a game too. Like if you're looking at who to bet on it, I think TCU might actually be favored in that game, when the line comes out. But I've got just a really strong feeling that Colorado, I could see it either way in that game. Honestly, I could. With them losing Duggan and a lot of those players, like we talked about, they could take a pretty big step back. And I think there's also that psychological effect too. Last time they took the field on a national stage, they're either going to come out and they're going to play really pissed off and ready to go because of that, or they're going to kind of come out and there's like a psychology thing. Sometimes when you get embarrassed like that, it can take a while to kind of get back, right in there. But yeah, I think the other thing too is, with Deion and them, you look at the class they signed another, 5-star cornerback out of this class. They got, a pretty good 4-star running back. He was the number 11 ranked running back. They've got, again, another wide receiver out of Georgia, a Louisiana wide receiver. They've got some edge players, they're kind of doing some stuff. Again, they're going to be competing, but I think the big thing is, when I watched some videos to see who's projected, and I think they'll still get more people, more players transferring in as after spring and all that stuff. And I think, the hard part of it is, you've got to get that production in there. I think production in college football, sometimes, it can outweigh talent. If you've got a guy that's played a ton of football, you look at Iowa, a team like Iowa, and I know that's your arch nemesis over there, and I know I'm wearing a Tom Osborne shirt. So, this is pretty much like,
shirt, though. Love it.
Blasphemy at this point. But how many times does Iowa or Wisconsin do they have these kids that there's no way they're as talented, as anybody else out there, but they just have played a ton of football and they're just very, very fundamentally sound, in the game. But I think, and we've talked about this, my biggest hang up with Colorado is they have to get the line of scrimmage figured out on both sides. They've got a ton of great athletes, but kind of like, if we can kind of throw this to the NFL for just a second, there was a debate a couple years back when it was Joe Burrow's, I think, second year, and they had the option to go after Penei Sewell or Jamar Chase, and they ended up taking Chase, and it worked out. They figured it out, but you almost wonder, as banged up as Joe Burrow has been at times, should they have tried to go after and get an offensive lineman in there? And that's Deion said that too, like to compete with Bama's and some of these top tier programs, like he needs to get, the lines of scrimmage kind of figured out. And that, to me, that's where you're going to kind of see, some of those pieces from that 1-11 team kind of probably still be in there.